What's up, wrestling fans? It's the Emerald Enthusiast, the co-host of the Way Back Wrestling Mania podcast. Here with a look at the Jazwares AEW Unrivaled Collection Series 7 figures of Cash Wheeler and Dax Harwood, the tag team known as FTR. I recently bought these figures at Time Traveler Toys and Collectibles in Winchester, Virginia. Be sure to check out the latest installment of my action figure hunting vlog for more details. And now let's take a closer look at the package details of these two figures. On the bottoms of the packages, we get product information. On the sides of the packaging, we get the All Elite Wrestling logo. There are windows on the top where you can see the figures, and on the opposite side, once again, we see the AEW logo. On the front, we see each wrestler's name in gold foil lettering. And on the bottom sides, we get small headshots and figure numbering. On the back bottom, we see the other wrestlers who have figures in this wave. On the back tops, we get action shots of Wheeler and Harwood from AEW All Out 2020. The figures are clearly visible through the front windows of the packages. I especially like that the AEW title belt accessories are positioned in the way that they are. The figures are centered well within the packaging, and I do like these studio shots. I just wish that they were slightly smaller so that we could completely see each one of the figures in its respective packaging. And with all that said, now it's time to bust these figures out of the package and see what's inside. Here are the figures removed from the outer packaging, but still in the inner plastic. And here we see FTR out of the package and ready to rumble. As a fan of FTR, I am very happy to own these figures, although as an objective action figure reviewer, I must say that these figures do have some glaring deficiencies. So let's go ahead and take a closer look at the loose details now. Let's start by taking a look at the accessories, and of course these are the AEW World Tag Team Championship titles. These have been reproduced very well. I like that shiny plastic, it looks like metal. These have been sculpted with outstanding accuracy. The only criticism that I have, and it is a very minor one, is that the blue paint used for these is a little on the pale side in comparison to the vibrant blue that we see on the actual title belts. A much more major complaint that I have with these figures is the movement on these jackets. Now, I do appreciate the appearance of these, but these appear to be a type of thick rubber, and as long as they are on the figure, the movement on the arms is minimal. So that is certainly disappointing. It really wasn't too difficult to slide the jacket off. There is the deco. I do appreciate the wrinkles that were sculpted in. I just popped off the hands, and then I was able to slide the arms out of the jacket. These little pieces of plastic were inserted between the figure and the jacket, so that made the process easier. Here is a close-up of Dax's jacket, and with the exception of the logos, I believe that these are otherwise identical. Let's have a look at the lower bodies now, and I put all of my figures on this turntable, and I give them the balance test. And as MJF would say, these figures are mid. I've certainly seen worse over the years, but these figures really have to be balanced properly to not fall over. The positive here is that each one of these figures has good ankle articulation, and that will allow you to get them into steady poses. However, there is plenty to like about the lower bodies here. In terms of the boots, I think these are spot on. Even though they're a basic black, there is plenty of excellent sculpting with the laces and the wrinkles that have been sculpted into the boots. And they do swivel back and forth, and I'll talk more about articulation in a minute. I also really appreciate these knee pads. You can see that they move up and down, as well as on Dax Harwood here. The knee brace is a separate piece, and it moves up and down. It doesn't hinder the knee articulation, and I really like that. And you can see just how much detail that this knee brace has. It is very realistic. And here's a look at the back of the figures. And the knee pads, the boots, and in Dax's case, the knee brace, those all look excellent. Although I do wish that the hamstrings had a little bit more definition. In terms of articulation, the tops of the boots swivel back and forth. There are double jointed knees on each figure. So if you would like to get these guys into running poses, you certainly have that option. Each of the figures has the quadriceps swivel, and I certainly appreciate that. The hip articulation is a little limited. It's not bad, but it could be better. You can get Cash Wheeler to kick forward that far. He does step back somewhat, so I really appreciate that. And in terms of getting the legs to kick out to the side, they do so to this degree, and I think this is perfectly acceptable. And with the quadriceps swivel, you do have more options for something like a leapfrog pose. As I mentioned earlier, both of these figures have superb ankle articulation. You can get them to move backwards and forwards, and there is pivoting, and that's very helpful in getting the figures into sturdy poses. So I really appreciate that degree of ankle movement. In terms of Dax's articulation, it's similar. He kicks forward about that far. He can step back a little bit more, so I like that. And his legs articulate out to the side a little bit better, so you can get him into a deep side kicking pose if you'd like. Now let's have a look at the torsos. And one of the first things that I noticed when I got these figures out of the package is that Dax's upper torso and his abdomen don't match in terms of flesh tone. So I certainly think Jazwares could have done better there. There is plenty of muscle definition, as you can see back here on the latissimus dorsi, but I feel like his chest and shoulders could be a little bit more muscular. Cash Wheeler over here looks pretty good. I do like all of this detail here on the tattoos. Those couldn't have been easy to do, so I have to give Jazwares points for accuracy there. In terms of articulation, both figures pivot back and forth at the waist. There's an upper torso swivel, and you can get both figures to rock back and crunch forward a considerable amount. I have seen some online chatter about AEW figures popping off at the waist, so do exercise caution when you're articulating these figures. Now let's have a look at the arms. And Dax's elbow pad is just painted on, and I'm sure that was done for the sake of making the jacket fit. Jazwares did a solid job when it comes to the musculature on the arms of these figures. Both Harwood and Wheeler are guys who obviously hit the gym a lot, and you can see that reflected here in the definition on the figures. The biceps, triceps, and deltoids certainly look like they belong to guys who are hitting the gym on a regular basis. In terms of articulation, there is full rotation at the wrist. It moves back and forth. There are double jointed elbows, so you certainly have the option of having these figures do an elbow dropping pose. Both figures have the bicep swivel, and the shoulder joints are even better in terms of movement than I thought they would be. They allow you to raise the arms up above the torsos, and you can rotate them back and outward into the big power pose. So I certainly appreciate Jazwares' work here. Let's have a look at the head sculpts now, and here is Dax Harwood, and this one is somewhat disappointing. Jazwares captured enough of his likeness to tell that it's him, but the eyes and the brow are just off. With thicker eyebrows and smaller eyes, I think this would have been a much better head sculpt. I'll give Jazwares credit for the shape of the head as well as the skin tone. Here's a look at the back of the head, and when we've seen Harwood in AEW, he has been clean shaven, and I think Jazwares captured that in a realistic way here. Jazwares did a better job with Cash Wheeler. Although the expression is a little lifeless, I can definitely see the likeness, and I certainly appreciate the paint applications on the hair and the beard. Even though this isn't perfect, they made an effort to do the fade on the sides of the head, so I really appreciate that. Here is the back of the head, and this gives you a good view of just how realistic the hair texturing is. As far as articulation goes, the heads move side to side easily. They look up, they look down. I wish Dax Harwood had a little bit more head tilting, but I really can't fault this level of articulation. Cash has the same amount of movement with his neck joint. You can see that demonstrated here. Although he actually does have some head tilting, and I do appreciate that as well. I certainly hope you have enjoyed this review. If so, please like and subscribe. Stay tuned for some articulation shots, and also remember to catch me on the Way Back Wrestling Mania podcast, where we cover all the happenings in the world of professional wrestling. And I'll be back to the internet with more pro wrestling related content soon. But until we meet again, this has been the Unrivaled Enthusiast, and thanks for watching.